the city that you live in makes a big difference. Working in Canada is quite different from working back in my home country. Things might have tripled in price, doubled in price. It's frustrating. We have been there, we have had the experience where we're saying, we can't do this. Hello. Welcome back to Through Nicky's Lens. I am Nicky and I'm here with another video for you. I want to talk to you about, I don't even know if controversial is the term to use, but a topic that has been on the social media platforms for a while now. And from time to time, I've been scrolling, I've seen immigrants talking about this topic. I've seen Canadians talking about this topic, and this is quite interesting. So, living in Canada, what are some of the things that you encounter on a daily basis? What are some of the major things when you think about the topic living in Canada? So I have several points that I want to highlight, and because of that, this is part one of a two-part video. So I want to share briefly. So I'm Nicky. I'm a Jamaican by birth. I have been living in Canada for a while now. I moved to Canada in late 2020 to start classes in an MBA program in 2021. So that was winter of 2021. So I completed my MBA program. I'm now working full-time. I am a permanent resident of Canada and I'm here with my family. So as I mentioned before, so many things have been said on social media about living in Canada or life in Canada. And to me, this is quite an interesting topic when you hear Canadians, when you hear people that have been living here for years go to social media and they're talking so many things. Some things they're discouraging persons from coming or living in Canada and wondering how ends will be met, how they will continue to live in this country because costs are high and it is all around. I would want to say that it is simply because of the pandemic. We might be living in the effects of the pandemic still. And let's talk about living expenses. If you choose to come to Canada, if you're living in Canada, you will realize that the city that you live in makes a big difference. It is highly likely that the time has gone by when people would have said that Vancouver is the place to live. It might still be, depending on why people want to live here. But this was a sought after province for people to live in simply because of the weather. Compared to other provinces, Vancouver did not get a lot of snow. But since I've been here in Canada, this will be my third winter, my third fall, and I have been seeing where it has gotten colder, it has been snowing way more than before. So living in highly populated areas, as I would have mentioned in another video, is quite expensive. So to live in Toronto, that's another sought after province for people to live in, and it's quite expensive. Vancouver is no different. And I would want to say Vancouver is way more expensive than even Toronto. So I've been doing some research and I have seen alarming figures, even though I knew that was the case, but to actually see it made a big difference. So I might insert above, and you can pause the video if it is that you want to see some of the costs for housing. And the type of house that you choose to rent or choose to buy makes a difference, and it also determines the cost. A 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. Which one do you think would be more costly? The 3-bedroom, of course. So if you're coming as a single person, you will find it easier to find housing or accommodation simply because you have different options. You have more options than someone that would come here with a family. So as a single person, you may choose to rent a shared space, a private room, or something like that. If you're coming with your family, especially if you have children, you have to think about at least a 2-bedroom, and it depends on the number of children that you have. A lot of landlords won't rent to you if you're coming with your family. They won't rent you a 1-bedroom. They might not even want to rent you a 2-bedroom if you have 2 kids. They might suggest that a 3-bedroom would be a more comfortable space for you and your family. So all those things you have to take into consideration when you're thinking about renting, right? You think about the city. Quite important. So if you're in a province, the more populated cities are more expensive. So the closer you are to downtown Vancouver, the more rent you'll be paying. So I've been seeing where housing prices in Burnaby, housing prices in Richmond, Vancouver, sky high. Surrey was once a place that was very affordable. And I'm saying this because back in the day when we came in 2021, we were paying about $1,400 for a basement. So choosing to live in a basement is also more affordable than choosing to live in an apartment, choosing to live in a house. And the basement is obviously less expensive because this is not the main floor of the house. Choose to live in the less populated areas. So you may choose to live in a Botsford, Chilliwack country, based on where I'm from. That's what you would call those places, but they're more affordable. They're farther away, so you will also have to look into finding employment closer to home. So right now, based on what I've been seeing, 2-bedrooms are in the high 2,000 price range. 3-bedrooms, high 3,000 price range. I've been also seeing that people may find rent for up to 4,000 Canadian dollars per month. That is way expensive, and I think if you are paying that for rent, it makes more sense for you to go and purchase a house. Another alarming fact when it comes to housing prices, rental, purchasing, is the fact that an article that I saw, and I will insert it. The article suggests that housing prices go up by at least $100 per month. And this simply means that if it is that property goes on rent in May, it might be, say, $2,800. If a similar property or the same property was not rented in May and it's available in June, they might add another $100. Or a similar property might be renting for $2,900 in July, $3,000. And I would say that this might be a fact simply because to rent an apartment, a unit in an apartment building 3 months ago was way less, maybe by $150 or $200. So you can see the difference. So the next thing I want to talk about is studying in Canada. Studying is one of the major routes that people choose to immigrate to Canada, simply because it's one of the easiest routes to get here and to remain here, to work temporarily, and eventually to become a permanent resident. When you choose to study in Canada, there are certain things that you have to think about. You have to think about the province. Certain provinces are sought after, as I said before, when it comes to living, and the same thing when it comes to studying. People might choose to go to Toronto, people will choose to come to Vancouver. However, there are other provinces out there. You can choose to go to Alberta, which may be a little more cost effective because housing costs are cheaper. Persons are now looking into going to Newfoundland and Labrador. They're also going to New Brunswick and other similar provinces. Saskatchewan is another one because housing again is cheaper there. Edmonton, Grand Prairie, as I mentioned before, those are places that people are choosing to go because cost of living are more affordable. Groceries. When I used to be in Alberta, when I came here, and this is a known fact, people in Alberta pay less taxes than people here in British Columbia. So food prices are cheaper, housing are cheaper, gas may be cheaper, and things like that when it comes to transportation. Think about the duration of the program that you're coming here to study. A longer duration of a program will give you a longer post-graduation work permit if you choose to study in a program that is PGWP eligible. That's post-graduation work permit eligible. Simply, once you're finished with your studies and you meet the necessary requirements, you can get to stay in Canada and work temporarily. The cost of the program is also essential. Whatever program you choose to study is a major deciding factor why someone would choose a particular province, a particular program to study. Seriously think about choosing a program that has a longer duration so you get a longer post-graduation work permit and you have a chance to work for a longer period of time so that you can get that Canadian work experience that you need in a skilled job, a skilled occupation to qualify for permanent residency. Available pathways to permanent residency after you finish your studies. There are several pathways, a lot. There are many pathways to permanent residency. However, studies in Canada determines if you're eligible, where you studied, what you studied, the length of the program you studied. All these things are factors that will determine the program that you're eligible to apply for to get your permanent residency. Generally, people who have work experience in Canada, people who were on an open work permit, a spouse, and students who eventually get their post-graduation work permit can qualify for Canadian Experience class. And that is one of the most popular programs for international students, as well as those that have work experience in Canada for more than a year. That is one of the easier ways to apply for permanent residency through the express entry system. Provincial Nomination Program, PNP. This is another option for many people. And right now, because the scores, the cutoff scores when they do that draw in the express entry profile, they're quite high. So when you get a nomination from a province, you will get an extra 600 points towards your express entry score to apply for permanent residency. Once you get that nomination from the province, it is almost guaranteed that you'll get an invitation to apply for permanent residency in the next rounds of invitations that are issued. When you study in a province, when you work in a province, you're more likely to be eligible to apply for a nomination from that province and to get your permanent residency. You have to prove your intention to settle in that province that nominates you to stay and live for a period of time before you can move to another province. So keep those things in mind as commitments when you go through the provincial nomination program. A labor market impact assessment is another option, another pathway for people to become permanent residents. And this is simply an employer who has gotten the approval from the federal government to employ specific foreign nationals, and they have to prove that there are no Canadians or permanent residents who can fill those positions. Some of those positions are usually highly skilled or in a specialized area. So it is easier for the employer to prove that they cannot find a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident to fill that spot, that role. So they get the opportunity to offer a labor market impact assessment that's an employer-specific work permit to a temporary foreign worker to fit in that role. Once you secure a labor market impact assessment, you are a bit further to applying for your permanent residency once you obtain the necessary work experience that you need. So again, when you choose to study in Canada, as I mentioned before, the province that you choose to live, the program that you choose to study, the duration of the program, the cost of the program, These are some of the things that you have to consider when you are choosing to come to Canada to study and to figure out if this is an easier way for you to get permanent residency so that you can live in Canada longer and eventually become a Canadian citizen. So we're now about halfway through the points for part 1 of the video. What I want to remind you is to subscribe to my channel, like the video, and leave a comment. I know I may have touched on some points that might have been of interest to you. You might have some questions, you might have a comment, some suggestions that you would like to make. Go ahead and leave that comment. Go ahead, like my video. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that you will be notified once I post a new video. Let's now move on to working in Canada. So I've been working full-time in Canada for over a year, and I've just had one job since I started working full-time. However, I've had 3 jobs so far as part-time, so I have a bit of experience. Since 2021 to now, 2023, almost the end of the year, I believe I've had some experiences working in different organizations. And in a nutshell, I would say that working in Canada is quite different from working back in my home country in Jamaica. My part-time jobs were survival jobs and they were necessary. They got me here, right? They got me to where I wanted to be. They helped to support me in raising my tuition when I needed to pay my phone bill, to do little things to help my family so that we could have evolved and gotten to where we wanted to get, which is to become permanent residents and to become citizens quite soon. So my experience, one thing I will say, if in your home country being late for work was acceptable, in Canada it's not. Being on time, being early is one thing that Canadians are known for. And it's a quite good trait to have, right? Breaks are shorter. So if you might be used to 1 hour for lunchtime, trust and believe that it will be cut down to about 30 minutes. If it's an 8-hour shift, you might get an additional 15 minutes for a break. People in Canada are generally quite polite, Canadians especially, and they're pretty good to work with as well. I've worked in a part-time job and I was one of maybe 3 employees that were not from a particular race. So when you go into certain organizations, you'll notice that it is mainly a particular race, just some organizations. The organization that I work with is quite diverse, and I've seen them making steps over the years to become more inclusive, to become more diverse. One thing that you can count on is getting feedback when you're working. Most times you don't have to try to figure out if you're doing a good job because they're quick to tell you, as well as they tell you thank you at the end of a work day. I'm like, thank you? Yes, thank you, because you contributed towards something for the development of the company. Another thing that I noticed about working with Canadians and the culture in some organizations is that they like to talk about what you did over the weekend, how was your evening, and they share personal things. I don't even know if I want to get used to it because it's not that easy for me to go and talk to people and to share personal things with them unless I'm very comfortable. Do I have friends on my team? Maybe not, and that's fine. I've noticed a drastic difference with how people are in the workplace. There might be a few that can genuinely say that they're friends with the people they work with, but especially since I work remotely, I don't build that connection with anyone, and that's fine. That is totally fine with me. So you have that professional working relationship with them, with the every now and again on a Monday, be prepared to say what you did over the weekend. And I'm finding it that when they ask, how are you? How was your weekend? And I'm like, I'm okay. My weekend was fine. They're like, just fine. They want to know details. They want to know the adventures that you went on over the weekend. That's not me. I'm the one that will stay inside and not do much for that weekend. So when it comes to the Monday morning and we're having our team meetings, I usually have little to nothing to contribute and to express that I did this or I did that. I stayed home, I spent time with my family, and that's good enough for me. Job hunting in Canada. I would want to imagine that it's similar to job hunting in any other country. It is quite challenging most times, and networking is key to find a job in Canada. Networking is similar to in Jamaica when you say that you have links, you know somebody in the company. And that is a big thing here. In my last term, when I was told that to find a job, I had to network, I'm like, how am I going to manage? Because I go nowhere. So one of the things that people do a lot here is to meet and greet, and you go to certain sessions with people with similar interests, like-minded people within your field, and you network, you make connections with people, and that is how you will get a job. That's the easiest way to get jobs in Canada. So there are meet and greet events. I'm not remembering the exact term right now, but these are major things here in Canada. There are people in the tech industry, they come together, they have a meeting or they have a social gathering, and they build connections so that in the future, if it is that you want to get a job, hey, I know somebody that works in this company, I know somebody that works in this field, and then you would get a referral. Referrals to get a job in organizations is the thing, is one of the things. So if you know somebody working in an organization, you have good qualifications, good experiences, good fit to the organizational culture, then you are in a better position to get a job. Allow somebody that you know to make a referral to their HR department, and you stand a better chance of getting a job than somebody else that's just simply sending in a resume that does not know somebody that could make a referral for them. Transportation, getting around in Canada. In my experience, getting around in Canada is quite easy, and it also might depend on where you live, the city that you live in. In the greater Vancouver area, where I live, transportation is a breeze. And it depends, as I said, on where you live. There are instances where the buses and the trains might run every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes, depending. There are other areas that it's every 20 minutes apart. It's every 30 minutes apart. It could be every 1 hour apart. So you have to know the transportation system. You have to know how to use apps. Canada is a vast country. The cities are extremely big. So and especially if you're somebody like me that does not go out quite often, you have to get familiar with your app. So I use Google Maps a lot. There is the TransLink app as well. Potentially other apps that you can utilize to find your way around. These apps have the schedules that the buses and the trains operate on. So if you intend to leave your house at a particular time, you can put that time in the app to see, okay, the bus is coming at this time. If I miss this bus, another bus will be coming in another 3 minutes, another 5 minutes, another 6 minutes, or whatever it is. Cost of transportation. To me, it's not that costly. And especially the fact that TransLink, that operates in the greater Vancouver area, you have a grace period that, say for example, you tap your card at 10:05. You have a period of time in which if you go into another train, if you go into another bus, that initial tap that you made and a charge was made, it covers your transportation costs on another route, on another bus, or so forth. So to me, that is a good system that allows you to spend a little bit less. So I will find the exact time that one tap allows you to ride on another bus or another train without having to pay again, and I will insert the information somewhere. Transportation in the different seasons. So in winter can be horrible depending on the province that you live in. Snow makes it horrible in the winter, as you can imagine. The frequency that the buses, that the trains operate can also be affected by the weather. If there's a snowstorm, it can be terrible. There are extreme delays. You may be delayed in one area and on a particular route. You're stranded sometimes, and it can be a pain. It can really be a pain. Transportation in rain. Although in Vancouver, I find that when it rains, it doesn't rain heavily, so it doesn't. Most times you're walking and you're wondering, like you're walking in the rain, you might not have an umbrella, and you find that you're not getting soaked. While if you were in Jamaica and it's raining, you know for sure that you can expect to be drenched. Transportation in many areas in Canada is quite accessible. So you have different modes of transportation. You have Uber, you have Lyft, you have the buses, you have the trains, sky trains mainly. In different provinces, they have different transportation system with different names. But from my understanding, from my experience, they are quite efficient. And again, it depends on where you live and how frequently these transportation operate. Uber can be quite costly. Lyft, I find sometimes is a little bit less expensive, and it might just be a few dollars, but compare. So you can have both apps on your phone and compare the prices and even the times and see which is more cost effective, and then you utilize that one. The time of day that you travel also determines the ease of the transportation at that period. You can imagine that in times when it's not the peak, you will find that the transportation operates less, and in peak hours you will have more vehicles, so they go quicker. Summer and traveling. Summer in Vancouver can be quite hot, but it's a good time. Canada is a beautiful country. You have many places that you can visit, many activities that you can do to keep you engaged, to keep you socializing, to keep you out and about, and to just enjoy what the country has to offer. I mentioned in a video that I did before that you don't have to go and purchase a new vehicle. You can go to a dealership and get a relatively good vehicle that you don't have to pay too much for. And the beauty about purchasing a vehicle by cash is that you don't have that monthly expense to think about. You can find vehicles on Facebook Marketplace. You can find vehicles on different platforms that are affordable, that are in good condition. And the key is to ensure that you can find a mechanic or somebody that can inspect the vehicle and ensure that it is in good working condition and it is a good investment. So I shared my family's experience about how we went about obtaining a vehicle. It was not new. It has been holding up. It has been doing pretty okay. So my husband has a friend, and he's a strong support system for my family. So he's a mechanic and he's in the greater Vancouver area. So if you are in the same area and you want to find a mechanic, you can just leave a comment and I will make that connection for you. So my husband has been learning how to fix his own vehicle. He has been getting assistance from his friend to work on that vehicle. If you can get that support, you can always use the route of purchasing a used vehicle. If you have the money and if you have a preference for wanting a new vehicle, then you can go ahead and have that sorted out so that you and your family can have the convenience that you need. Having a personal vehicle throughout all the seasons of Canada makes a whole lot of difference. When it comes to shopping, it is more convenient. I remember the times when we didn't have a car, so we had to take the bus to the supermarket. We made our purchases and then we just called an Uber or called a Lyft. That was an okay thing to do, but when it came to the winter, when it came to the fall, and the spring, when we had so much rain, when it was snowing, it was a task. And especially it was three of us. My son was 4 or 5 and we had to be traveling. It was a task. It was an unpleasant experience and we hated it. So now that we have the vehicle, it is easier for us to get around. We don't have to think about getting an Uber or a Lyft to go to one location, and then you do whatever you need to do, and then you get another one to go to another location. It is more convenient. So if and only if you can invest in a vehicle, I would say go ahead. If it is that you're not in a position yet, I would tell you to wait, because that's what we had to do. We had to wait for a while. Shopping in Canada, groceries, groceries, groceries. That's something you can't do without. And one thing I will say, that being in Canada, you have to have everything for yourself. And even if you don't have everything for yourself, you have to have a community to lend you support whenever you need it. Because there's nobody here to give you anything. Everything costs money. And you grow to appreciate what it is and just roll with the punches. You know that you have to work for whatever you want. Nobody is going to hand anything to you. When it comes to shopping, groceries are quite expensive, especially now. We're in a period of inflation. And I would say that in any way that you can think of, inflation is right there. Right there, not letting you live, not letting you be great. What we could have gotten for maybe $700 maybe a year ago, or back in 2021, in 2023, don't even think about it. Don't even try. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Things might have tripled in price, doubled in price, because it is a reality. I remember when we just moved from Alberta, we went shopping and we had a few groceries before we came here. So when we went to the supermarket, we had to buy a good amount of things still, because the perishable items we couldn't have traveled with, and we took the bus from Alberta to British Columbia. So we had to think about what we were taking. We had to leave some of the things. So when we got here, we had to buy a lot of the things that we needed. We were coming to an unfurnished space. We had to buy a whole lot of things. We went to Real Canadian Superstore and we spent over $400. And if I'm not mistaken, we had 2 cards. I believe we did have 2 cards. And even if it was one, it was well stacked. We had rice, we had meats, we had juices, we had cases of water. We had so many things. We then went to Dollarama and we bought a whole lot of household items and snacks and so forth. So as I said, we had to buy everything because we rented an unfurnished space. We spent $300 and something, and we had 2 carts. Dollarama carts are a little bit smaller than the ones that you find at Superstore or Walmart. But we had 2 carts and we got a whole lot of things that we needed to get our space as comfortable as we wanted it to be. We also went to Costco. I can't remember how much we spent, but the point is we spent less than $1,000 on groceries and some of the household items, and we got a whole lot of things. When we got to the house and we were unpacking, we were there for hours going through things, sanitizing and cleaning down and doing all the necessary things that we needed to do to get the house in a little order so that we could be comfortable for the night. But now when you think of going to the supermarket with $1,000, you're wondering what you're going to come home with. And I think that is every country right now that might be experiencing the same thing. So I don't think it's a blame on Canada. Yes, things are more expensive than they were years before, maybe 5 years ago, or even just before the pandemic. But the reality is that cost of living is high everywhere. So you just have to try to live within your means and just to get by. Clothing shopping in Canada. When it comes to purchasing clothing in Canada, persons here have found that the time that you purchase particular clothing item makes a difference. And what I mean by that is that a lot of sales happen at the end of a particular season. So at the end of the summer season, they put the summer items on sale because they're going to bring things in for fall. And usually people go crazy shopping at that time so that they can get the necessary things they wanted that they probably wouldn't want to buy at those prices, and they just save them until the next summer. Persons buy things based on the seasons, as you can imagine. So furniture, clothing, persons might change those things out depending on the season that it is. And if it's something like furniture, patio furniture, outdoor furniture, and things like that, they don't need those things in the fall or in the winter. So you find that you'll get a lot of things for sale. Facebook Marketplace is a place to purchase the things that you need, especially if you're on a budget. Buying clothing, think about the places that you're going to make a purchase. If you're into name brands, then you know you'll pay the price for those items. If you're a person like me that doesn't care about the brand, you just care about covering the necessary parts that need to be covered, then you should be good. I wear simple clothing, so you know it doesn't cost me a lot. I look for the different stores that can give me value for the money. I don't buy a lot of clothing. I don't go anywhere really. I sit in front of my computer every day for work. And even when I do go into the office, I don't need a lot because I don't go quite often. And my husband would tell you that I have a lot of clothes that I don't even wear. But when I do purchase, I know where to go. So you find places that give you value for money, as I said before. You buy your clothing items on sale. I found a store in Surrey. It's an Ardeen or Arden, however you pronounce it. That store is like an outlet store where if it is that they have a particular style in stock at the other stores and they're going out of season, then they might take it to that particular store to sell them, and they always have things on sale. Sales are always happening. You get 3 items for $10, 3 items for $15, 3 pairs of shoes for $15. Crazy sales. So I wear simple things. I can find tops, simple tops there. I can find leggings, I can find tights, I can find simple things that you can wear almost anywhere. Thrifting is another thing. You find new clothing items at thrift stores. I know a lot of people that are here that does thrifting, and you save a lot when you do that. The simple thing behind it, and some people might frown upon thrifting, but it's actually a way to survive. If it is that you know that you're coming here and you don't want to spend too much on certain things, you might go to a thrift store. You can find a lot of household items. People might have too much of one thing. They don't want that item anymore. They donate it to a thrift store. You have clothing items lightly worn. It doesn't fit anymore. You donate it to a thrift store. We donate to a thrift store as well, especially items for my son or even things that we're not wearing anymore. And you go there and you find those items. They're in good condition. You get them for little to nothing. Thrifting is the way to go. Nobody needs to know where you get your clothing items. I'm not saying we shop there quite often, but a lot of the things you can find there. You can find winter jackets. You can find winter shoes. Shoes is something that I don't know if I'm really comfortable buying at a thrift store. But if you do the necessary sanitizing, that's something that you can get away with without having any issues. As I mentioned, Facebook Marketplace. You need to buy a car, you can find it on Facebook Marketplace. You need items for your house, you can find things on Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace has things for cheap prices, the affordable prices, things for free. You can't go wrong most times when you go on Facebook Marketplace. Instead of you're renting a space and it's unfurnished. Instead of going to purchase things on credit, spend high costs on furniture and things like that, you can find those things on Facebook Marketplace in really good condition. As I said, things that are free as well. There's no shame in the game. You're coming here, you're relocating, you're reestablishing. You might have left your things at home. well, you can't come with a lot of things when you're moving to Canada unless you're going to ship them and you know you're coming here on a permanent basis. But a lot of people might sell the items that they had back home, like we did. You come here and you start over. You purchase some of your items because you can't depend on getting everything for free. But I can guarantee you that you can furnish your home with good items from Facebook Marketplace for free or at a very low and affordable cost. Places to shop for grocery items: Real Canadian Superstore or simply Superstore. From my experience, Real Canadian Superstore is a good and affordable store to purchase your grocery items, your supermarket items at. They have store brands called No Name, Noname, 2 words. It's in a yellow packaging. Good items, just the same, comparable to the brand names like Kraft and Procter and Gamble items, Kellogg's items, comparable. There are other brands like PC brand and so forth that you can get at Real Canadian Superstore that are at more affordable prices. I would not highly recommend for people to shop for grocery at Walmart. Walmart is a good option to shop, but you have to be mindful and also careful of some of the things that you buy at Walmart that at other stores you might get at cheaper prices. So shop around, look at the various prices when you go to the stores, compare, look into getting cards like reward cards, cards that can give you cash back, cards that can give you points so that you can eventually use those points towards a purchase that you're making. Look at comparing prices as well. There are some stores that might match the prices. Say, for example, you go to Walmart and you see an item, a grocery item for a particular price, maybe $2 less than you saw it at Superstore. Sometimes they do price matching. Walmart also has a lot of rollback. This is like a sale where they roll the prices back so you get them at a way cheaper price than the original prices. Look out for those things. Look out for sales. When you see things on sale, especially if you know that you're going to need them or you need them, grab as many of them as you can. And this is more value for money. Things you get on sale, you can maybe buy things in bulk, as I said, at Costco, so that you don't have to shop for those items on a frequent basis, and eventually you will see the cost savings that you get when you buy items on sale, when you buy items in bulk. Another superstore that you can purchase is at Dollarama. Dollarama may even have some of the same high quality brands that you will find in other stores, but the quantity is different. Dollarama has a wide selection of household and grocery items that you can purchase and you won't even know the difference. You find items on one-off basis sometimes at Dollarama that when you go to other stores, you're paying triple those prices for the items that you pay in the dollar store. It's called Dollarama, a dollar store, whatever it is, but you're not paying $1. Most of the items are above $1, but you can get items that are way more inexpensive than if you buy them at another store. As I said, the quantity might be a little bit less, but it's the same comparable brands to items that you might get in Walmart, that you might get in Superstore and stuff like that. And you can go and get a lot of your items at Dollarama. Freshco is another store that you can purchase at. There are several Freshcos around the country, but they have different names. I assume that they're franchises. So one of the locations that we usually buy some of our grocery items is called Chalo Freshco. So you can find a lot of the international brands there, Jamaican items, items from India, items from Asian countries, and so forth, that you might not find at some of the other supermarkets. Certain meats that you might eat in your home country that you might not find in Walmart, that you might not find in Superstore. And a lot of times too, Freshco has many deals that you can take advantage of. They have sales on meats, they have sale on so many things. So if it is that you can find a Freshco, if you can find And No Frills. No Frills is one of the family, I believe, of Real Canadian Superstore. Some of the same brands like the No Name and the PC brand you can also find at No Frills. You can find those at Real Canadian Superstore. Shop around, see which stores will be better for you and your family to purchase, and make your purchases there. Do them in bulk so that you can get value for your money. Transportation and getting around. I touched on this a little bit earlier when I spoke about getting your items to your house after you have gone to do your grocery shopping and whatever else that you might need on a monthly basis. Some of the seasons can be brutal, as I mentioned before. So in the summer and going into the fall, you can wait and look around and see if you can find an affordable and a vehicle that's in good condition before you haste and make a purchase, and then you buy something that's way expensive and you could have spent less if you spent a little bit more time to find a vehicle that is less expensive. During the winter, during the fall, those are the times that it might be more harsh on you because of the weather. So think about transportation. How are you going to get home after you make these purchases? These are things that are important to consider. I know it's frustrating. We have been there. We have had the experience where we're saying, no, we can't do this. We left our home where we had a vehicle. We're coming here, we're taking a bus. We're coming here, we are struggling in the snow. Our fingers are freezing. So keep those things in mind. Keep those things in mind. Those are adjustments that you have to make. You just have to be tough and endure until things get a little bit better. So we have come to the end of part 1 of the video, Living in Canada. Tune in to my next video to hear about the different topics that I will talk about in part 2. Thank you for making it through Nicky's Lens, and I will see you in my next video.